Hey, friends. I was just thinking about emotional health and its relationship with anger, and thought I'd just share a few thoughts here for whatever it's worth. Hopefully, it's helpful for you. We typically people have one of two responses to anger. You have people who express anger, and then people who suppress anger. So somebody who expresses anger, when they get frustrated, they get angry, and it's an outburst. There's raised voices, maybe even physically, depending on the age and the level of maturity and other things involved in their emotional health. Like they'll be compelled to express their frustration physically, vocally, body language, maybe even throwing things. Obviously, I think you get the point. That's expressed anger. The other version is suppressed anger, and suppress people who suppress their anger still feel anger. In fact, everybody feels anger. We even see in scripture that Jesus feels anger, God feels anger. And so this is a little bit of a side note that I'll just make a comment on, and then I'll get back to suppressed anger. But I think it behooves us, if we're going to disciple our children well, pastor people well, that we make sure we don't communicate anger as being sin in and of itself, because anger is an emotion of something deeper going on. And so it should make us curious. It should, if we're walking with somebody, our children or whatever, like it should cause us to lean in and kind of dig deeper. What might be going on underneath that? For myself, when I'm feeling angry, that's when I know I need at the very least to take some time and kind of reflect what's going on, what's making me angry. But that's also been a piece that I found really helpful to have a therapist and a counselor for, is because I don't always know why am I feeling this way. And so somebody else, kind of a third party, even disassociated from the immediate situation, can kind of help me reflect on and bring to surface some of the things that might be causing the anger. All that to say, some people suppress anger, and when you're looking on, it looks like they don't get angry. But when you're in relationship with them, you begin to realize there are times when it doesn't make sense, that there's silence, there's um, maybe what can feel like a cold shoulder, or uh, just even a lack of response. It's something where it would be meaningful to have some kind of response, but there's a lack of response. Uh, the thing about suppressing anger, though, is it does come out. Anger is not something that you can um, hold in. It's really like sexuality in many ways as well. Like if you have sexual, your hormones are building up sexually, it's gonna come out. Like it, you can't just suppress that the whole time. Again, another conversation for another time. But anger is very much this way, and the thing you'll notice, anybody can be passive aggressive, but especially this is especially common maybe with someone who's more tempted to suppress, or their default is to suppress anger, is it comes out in very passive aggressive or pious ways, or maybe kind of under the radar bursts, outbursts. And so what I was reflecting on is that, so my wife and I, and I'm not going to share all of our story and our journey, but the reality is we are, like, I tend to be the one who expresses anger. She tends to be the one who suppresses anger. But something we've become very honest about for both of us is that we feel anger equally. In fact, it probably eats away at her more. When I feel the anger, it tends to be kind of expressed and then dropped. It's gone. And for her, I think it rides. By the time I see it, it's been there for quite a while. And so here's the piece that I've been learning. And first of all, I was listening to somebody the other day. I think it was a YouTube short, so it wasn't like a resource that I could really easily go back and find, and it wasn't somebody I knew, but they gave me language to talk about this in a way that I had never had before, because all my growing up years, I had the perspective, and I'm not trying to blame anybody. This is just the perspective I had of myself, was that I was a bad guy because I was incredibly angry as a child, in my youth. I had all these angry outbursts, And then in my late teenage years to early adulthood, and I'm going out to Bible school and beginning to make other relationships, even romantic relationships and so forth. I'm bumping into people who they don't have outbursts like that, but there's something really off. Like it doesn't feel fair. I remember thinking this at one point. It doesn't feel fair to say that I'm the angry guy because you strike me, and I'm just using you metaphorically, like this individual strikes me as just as angry, if not more angry than me, but he's never going to raise his voice or do whatever. And so that was something I began to grapple with a little bit, to the degree of, as I began doing ministry and church discipleship and leadership within teams and stuff, I've become like, man, I think just like expressing things as they are is almost healthier than this version of suppression, whatever it is, because at least then we know where people are at. Anyways, I was listening to this YouTube short, and the guy talked about, and I can't remember his name or the language even, but the concept of, I can't remember if he used uh, explosive experiences, explosive interactions, or traumatic interactions. But he was talking about how subversive or suppressed anger can be really damaging, really dangerous, because on the surface it looks like things are okay, but it's eating the person away inside. And it's actually like you might think that it's not affecting other people, but it does affect relationships. Um, and he talked about this guy that I was listening to talked about how we want to cut down on all traumatic experiences or explosive experiences. I can't remember exactly the language. Explosive is what's coming to mind. I think it was more traumatic though, because it was targeting both like a suppressed anger who has kind of a passive aggressive jab. That's also traumatic. But the way I was thinking was almost leaning as though like the the epitome of health is just to let your emotions hang on your sleeve, and that's actually not healthy. Like I need to cut down on my outburst or express anger as well. That's not any healthier necessarily. But we need to rightly identify like what is actually these kind of traumatic or angry expressions. And this is something that I've observed in my relationship with my wife. For me, the healthier I become, the more I am willing to give conflict space. The healthier I become, I'm the one who naturally expresses anger, expresses frustration. And that can ride behind the disguise of like I want to solve conflict, because I hate conflict. I hate that living around the house or in relationships is like I'm not sure where we're at with each other. But then that tends to be kind of an aggressive kind of grab the bull by the horns, and that, especially for someone who's not tempered that way, makes things worse. And so what I've noticed, I didn't set out to do this. I've just noticed as I work on myself and emotional healing, emotional health, I've noticed that I'm more okay giving conflict space, not for the purposes of avoiding it and hoping we don't have to come back to that, but just for the purposes of like giving emotions space to breathe. Like it's perfectly okay. Oh, fine. That's a new word. It's perfectly fine. Okay to have strong emotions, but sometimes it's better to have space to just kind of think about, talk, maybe even talk to ourselves out loud, like all these emotions, and then we can gain perspective and come back and be able to, with respect and dignity and gentleness, kind of enter into the conversation again. And so I've noticed that about myself. The other thing I've noticed is that for my wife, the healthier she becomes, there's this path that because she's been so used to suppressing anger, there's almost more expressed anger in that journey towards health. And that's why I think it's really crucial that we do not view expressed anger as unhealth, because we have to give it in context of personality and of people's journey. And also, it is signifying something deeper going on. And so for myself, like giving her the space to express that and not even necessarily need to fix it, because I mean she's a mature, healthy human being. She can identify what's driving all of that behind, but maybe what she needs, at least in our relationship, is the space to express it. The goal is the same for us in that we're able to process our emotions in a healthy way, and in a way that builds intimacy in relationship and doesn't push people apart and doesn't. And so a part of that is cutting down. Like one of the things we can look at is how many traumatic or explosive interactions do we have? Because in the whole grand scheme of things, we want it to be healthier. We want a more stable emotional temperament in our home and in our relationships. But just because somebody who once seemed to never get angry all of a sudden starts now expressing anger, that doesn't mean they're going backwards. That's actually probably an indication that they're becoming healthier because they're no longer expressing the anger. Everybody has anger. We all feel that. And learn health and maturity is learning how to process it in a way so that we can thrive individually, but also in our relationships. Anyways, just wanted to share that with you for whatever it's worth. Grace and peace.